You're listening to 10,000 Worlds, written and read by Weston Gill. That's me. Chapter 21. MIA. Liz called Nina for the 5th time. When the automated message cut her off with a voicemail full, she let out a hostile huff and clenched her jaw. Damn it, Nina, she snapped. Her phone's probably off, Hank offered gently. You think? Liz bit back. They both knew better. Nina's phone stayed on like a lifeline, and the idea of her shutting it down for more than a few minutes was almost laughable. Liz exhaled sharply, then softened. Sorry, she's so frustrating sometimes. Her thumb was already flying across the screen. They always shared their locations. Always. Hank pulled the truck up in front of Nina's condo. One glance at Liz's phone told him what he already suspected. She wasn't home. The place sat in eerie quiet. No lights, no flickering TV glow that usually poured from the windows. If Nina was within a block, some soap opera rerun would have been humming in the background. Where to? Hank asked. With a sigh, Liz scowled at the screen. She's at the fucking wine bar. Vino's downtown? Oh, the new one in Southtown. Liz swapped to her Maps app. I know where it is. Hank waited a beat before daring to question, so do we go get Nina or just meet Aaron? The way Liz turned her head made the answer obvious. Right, we're getting Nina. Hank threw the truck into gear. Liz slumped against his shoulder. Sorry, babe. It's not a big deal, Hank smiled warmly. Liz drew a deep, steadying breath. I just thought she was actually excited this time. Hank squeezed her closer. The next 15 minutes passed in companionable silence. When they finally rolled into the wine bar lot, Hank scanned for parking, plenty of open spaces. This wasn't downtown, but he swung close, just to the front, to check. That bitch, Liz hissed, sitting bolt upright. What? Hank said. She's with Aaron. Aaron, Liz was already clawing her seatbelt free. Wait, babe, wait, Hank called, sliding into a spot, pulling in crooked. Liz stormed towards the bar, fury fueling every step. Hank hustled after her and winced when she walked straight through the front doors without touching them. Inside, Liz ignored the hostess and scanned the tables until Nina's eyes flickered up and locked with hers. Liz smiled like a predator. Nina, she called, voice too bright, too loud, too happy. Nina's answering smile was thin and nervous. Oh, hey, Liz, she said as she approached. Aaron blinked between them, confused. You? Yeah, me, Liz said sweetly, extending her hand. Liz, I can explain, Nina started. Oh, you don't have to, Liz cut in, turning her attention squarely on Aaron. Did she tell you? Nina shrank into her chair. Aaron frowned. Tell me what? Hank arrived, sliding an arm over Liz's shoulder, and Aaron repeated, Tell me what? I'm Hank. He extended a hand, deliberately bypassing the drama. Aaron shook it on autopilot. Aaron, sorry to interrupt your date, Hank said with an apologetic smile. No problem, Aaron lied, tamping down his irritation. Meanwhile, Liz and Nina exchanged wild, furious hand gestures, a silent battle only close friends could wage. You know she hit on me, right? Aaron said finally, looking from Hank to Nina. Hank just smiled. We know. I did not hit on you, Liz shot back. Aaron leaned away. You kind of did. I didn't. Oh, okay, Aaron said quickly. Just wanting out? I'll grab chairs, Hank said, kissing Liz's cheek. You can take mine, Aaron said, already rising. No, Liz and Nina snapped in unison. They glared at each other. That was enough for Aaron. Nina, I had fun, but whatever this is, I'm not into it. Sorry. He squeezed past Liz and headed out. By the time Hank returned with a chair, Aaron was gone. What happened? He asked innocently. She did, Nina pointed at Liz. Liz rolled her eyes. Nina, you told us you wanted to do this as a team, Hank said, easing into his seat. Of course you'd take her side, Nina shot back. You're basically married. Well, I am right, Liz muttered. Hank rubbed her shoulders gently. Liz's face shifted as the weight of it hit her. She realized how badly she'd just blown it. See, Nina snapped. Not always right. Tears pricked Liz's eyes. Fuck, she whispered. Nina, we're sorry we ruined your date, Hank said softly. Nina inhaled, then let it go. It's fine. It's not fine. We should have trusted you. Hank gave Liz's shoulder another squeeze. Liz finally wilted, dropping into the empty chair. Hank's right, Nina. I'm sorry. Chapter 22. Scared in the Dark. Jake clutched the sides of his head, rocking back and forth. Nothing remained but the chilling dark and the gleaming inhuman smile. The voice that filled him wasn't a voice at all, more a guttural vibration that rattled through his bones, reverberating like a storm beneath his skin. The vision hung at a distance but pressed closer with every heartbeat, as if drawn towards him. Panic hijacked his mind. His body stayed rigid, but his consciousness scattered in 20 directions at once. Like startled birds, each fragment sought escape, only to be herded back, corralled as if by wolves into the prison of his true self. And there was something else, lurking beyond the black, tethered to him, yet apart, a shape he couldn't quite see or grasp. It felt like a part of him lost outside his body, pacing, calling to the hidden thing, even as Ghent's rumbling maw surged closer. Nothing answered. The smile bore down. Jake's chest locked, lungs refusing to work. Terror froze him in place until the moment itself froze within him. Time stuttered. Everything halted. At first, it was only Jake and his fear, stretched into eternity. Slowly, he recognized that the presence outside him wasn't foreign at all. It was him, maybe the real him, something deeper than flesh or thought. The revelation cracked open his vision. What followed wasn't sight in any human sense. It was certainty, awareness. He saw Ghent in the real world, the detective's cruiser prowling towards his house, the same monstrous grin radiating outwards, resonating in Jake's chest like a brass note too deep to endure. And with that certainty came realization. He had been thinking too small. His limits had never been where he thought. He shut all of his eyes to the clawing dark Ghent used against him. Not blinked, but changed, reframed. The nightmare dissolved into something thin, transparent, a watermark, not the truth. A warning that Ghent was near. Jake adjusted the opacity like a filter, dialing it back until the menace seemed almost laughable. It wasn't power, it was theater, deception, and he didn't have to play along. Excitement surged. For a heartbeat, he felt godlike, as though he were editing reality itself. He twisted the rules of the perception Ghent forced on him further. Power now appeared as luminous fields of color and motion, a language written in light. He couldn't yet read it, but he knew he would eventually. Subconsciously, he began to understand. He gave himself more, an awareness of every presence, every shift around him, a sense map of the world. It was overwhelming, but from this strange deep place, he tuned it like an instrument until it fit. He played there for what felt like forever, saw the cost of his powers, the reservoir within him, the drain each use carved from it. He hadn't even touched the surface before. Then he snapped back. The understanding spilled away like water cusped in his hands, most lost, some held, some etched into him forever. Ghent's cruiser screeched to a halt in front of his house. Jake saw him storm to the front door, saw through walls and furniture as the detective barreled towards the kitchen, where Ghent expected to find a cowering boy. There was only an empty space. His eyes widened in shock. Jake answered with a radiant grin of his own, not in flesh, but in thought. Ghent turned slowly, scanning, realizing the truth. You can't hunt a seer who watches every move. Impressive, child, he said aloud, voice rough with grudging respect. But I'll still find you. He left as quickly as he had come. Jake's triumphant smile carried onto his real face. For the first time, Ghent's shadow tricks hadn't touched him. He stretched his vision outward, summoning dozens of lives at once. Ghent among them, but powerless to interfere this time. The city unfolded in him like a living circuit board. He flicked through strangers as if manning the control center of some endless game. His awareness spread across blocks, alleys, rooftops. He felt every detail. Butterflies over flowers, moles tunneling, the scuttle of rats in the crawl space, the sway of every breeze. His new sight was terrifying and beautiful. Chapter 23, Misfortune. Aaron shoved the door to his sister's house open and shouted, "Emily, I'm never dating again." Emily was laughing before he even hit the living room. Card tables covered every inch of space, stacked with packages, labels, boxes, waiting for her relentless assembly line. "That was the weirdest date yet," Aaron muttered as he slouched past, heading straight for the kitchen. Come on, the last girl you went out with sent you a cash request for gas, Emily said, barely glancing up as she slapped labels on padded envelopes. The cute nurse couldn't have been that bad. Honestly, she was great. Aaron hesitated. It's her friends that are insane. Emily rolled her eyes, unsure she wanted the details. She heard him open the fridge, sigh like it had personally betrayed him, and shut it again. How do you never have food? He demanded. Probably because you're always here eating it. Emily shot back with a grin. Aaron reappeared, already reaching for her phone. Can I use this? You're ordering food on my account? You know I'll pay you back, Aaron said automatically, thumb flicking through the delivery app. They both knew he'd forget. Emily shook her head but didn't stop him. What's wrong with your phone? Lemon, battery's already toast. Of course, Emily muttered. Fine, get me something too. What are you feeling? Thai, I guess? Aaron's face lit up. He tapped the order instantly, grateful for direction. Emily kept working, though her curiosity was clawing. So what happened then? Aaron slid a hand through his hair. I took Nina to the new wine bar. Things were going great. Then her friends showed up. That girl who came to my door and started in on the magician crap, her and her boyfriend. Emily stopped mid-label. Wait, the crazy girl you begged me to rescue you from? Yeah, that one. Aaron waggled his fingers in mock mysticism. Emily huffed. Right. No, listen. 1 second, I'm enjoying wine with Nina. The next second, the crazy door knocker is back, spouting nonsense. I tried to leave when my car was dead, wouldn't even turn over. Ended up walking home. Emily's head snapped up. Aaron, that's 10 miles at least. Why didn't you call me? Aaron gave her a look. Phone's dead too. Wouldn't hold a charge. Left it charging all night. Nothing. Might be your charger, Emily offered. She got up, grabbed hers, and held it out a hand. Aaron dug the expensive brick out of his pocket and set it in her palm. Emily plugged it in, wiggled the jack, and waited. Nothing. Your car and your phone both die on the same night? Yep. Been on a bad streak since the stable incident, Aaron said, collapsing onto the couch. Emily frowned, unplugged his phone, then plugged hers in. Hers lit up instantly. Weird, she eyed him. You could have borrowed someone else's phone, you know. I don't know your number. What? Do you know mine? Emily rattled it off without hesitation. Aaron blinked. Well, you were always the smart one. I always wished for a smarter brother, Emily mused. Fuck you. He snatched up a pack list and a small box, pretending to help. Emily smirked and matched him. Okay, but seriously, don't make this a thing. Aaron's voice dropped, uncharacteristically earnest. I'm glad I've got you, especially when life is being this weird. Emily's smile softened. I know. Aaron shook his head and chuckled. Okay, Mrs. Solo. Chapter 24, Sanctuary. Vuet's facade of calm cracked the moment they stepped into the city. The streets pulsed with people. So many people, rushing about their lives. She hadn't seen another living soul in decades, and her memories of humanity had dulled to a ghostly blur. Now, hemmed in by strangers who neither noticed nor cared for her presence, her senses were overloaded. Tears welled in her eyes and she froze, paralyzed by the 1,000 impossible impressions hammering in her mind. Rylan forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. There were no words for her grief, no language for the weight of years she had borne in silence, so he let the touch speak. The warmth of his palm, the firm reassurance of his fingers, they stood together in the stream of rushing bodies, unmoving for long, grounded minutes. Come on, he said gently at last. Let's get you away from the crowds. He clasped her padded hand and guided her forward. He pretended not to see the tears streaking down her russet cheeks, pretended not to hear the ragged, shuddering sobs she tried to swallow as they pressed through the throngs of people. The city itself was no less overwhelming. Sanctuary was an impossible quilt stitched from 10,000 worlds. Skyscrapers sprawled towards the heavens beside leaning shacks cobbled together from scraps. Towering crystals caught and refracted sunlight with no visible entrances, while colossal steel and stone structures grew like living things into the shape of ships that might sail stars rather than seas. And the people? No, not people, not only people. There was no majority race here, no single tribe or culture in dominance. Humanity was but one thread among countless others. Vuet clutched Ryland's hand like a child's toy, her anchor against the night. Monsters walked freely here. No one flinched. No one screamed. To the citizens of Sanctuary, wonder and horror were simply the ordinary. Ryland drew her past wonders without pause, creatures that towered like buildings, others as delicate and small as insects, vendor stalls peddling goods from worlds long lost, doorways that opened into nothing and yet swallowed customers whole. By the time they reached their destination, Vuet's senses had surrendered entirely. The gentle squeeze of his hand before each turn was the only signal she could comprehend. They entered a cavernous hangar littered with scattered work tables. Only one occupant bent over a project, a massive shelled being, its 4 lower limbs planted firmly on the ground, its 4 upper arms manipulating shards of steel and glass into something more technological than magical. Vuet's gaze climbed slowly from its insectile mandibles to its faceted eyes, black and gleaming like carved onyx. The creature clicked and chittered its greeting, claws never slowing their work. "All weather is good after a life in the storm, my friend," Ryland said. Vuet's gift, half forgotten until this moment, translated the layered tones into meaning. "Ryland, Walker of Worlds," the being intoned. "What brings you to Sanctuary again?" Tugged Vuet gently forward. "Another wanderer," he said. The creature reared slightly, peering down at her, mandibles clacking. "Not wanderer, survivor." Its claws stilled, bits of metal clattered forgotten to the table. The glow of its shell dimmed the daylight itself, casting the hangar into unnatural twilight. Vuet flinched, but Ryland's grip tightened. Not cruelly, but unyielding. "She has no papers, no pass, no passage," the creature said. "She will," Ryland answered firmly. "I'll provide what she needs." The being released a resonant hum, not sound exactly, but vibration, a tone that wrapped itself through Vuet's body. She gasped as her flesh, her soul attuned to it. "Ryland?" she cried, wrenching at his hand. "What's happening to me?" "He's erasing the mark of your world," Ryland said softly, "attuning you to this one, so you'll never be lost again." Vuet steadied herself and looked at him anew. As the resonance reshaped her core, she felt her soul shift, tethering itself to Sanctuary. Recognition struck in her. This was no ordinary trick. It was deep magic, the kind her ancestors whispered of, stepping beyond the boundaries of a world, if only for a breath. "You see it?" Ryland asked. "I feel it," she whispered, already exploring the new threads of power unfurling within her, some bright and clear, others ephemeral, waiting at the edges of her consciousness. "It feels natural, but you are a wanderer now, like me." Her eyes snapped to his, fury sparking even as wonder lingered. "I won't be a shaper. Don't let him erase my world." She tore free from his grasp, fists trembling. "No, Vuet." Ryland's head bowed, voice heavy with grief. "I erased your world." Her heart braced for rage. Instead, empathy struck her like a blade, sharp and undeniable. The sorrow of shared loss flooded her chest. She saw his pain, his burden, and felt her own reflected back at her. And so the pair stood together, survivor and destroyer, and wept. Chapter 25. Taking Me Seriously. Jake was past the point of faking sick days, but skipping school was still easy enough. With his powers expanding and Ghent's threats burning in the back of his mind, he had motivation like gasoline poured on a fire. 3 mages tracked, 3 pieces of proof that he wasn't crazy and not alone. He still hadn't figured out how to talk to them, or at least not through his gift, but today he had a plan. At first, Jake thought it would be simple. Grab a phone number, send a text, maybe even email them. But nobody just rattled off their phone number out loud. Nobody ever read their email address in full when they were logging into a website. Every time he hoped for a slip, he got nothing. So he changed tactics. If he couldn't reach them through screens, he'd do it in person. Jerome lived closest, 10 minutes on a bike. His shift at the coffee shop wasn't until tomorrow. Jake pedaled off in the cool morning, rehearsing lines in his head. "Hey, unlike you, we've got to stick together. There's a crazy monster hunting us." The words sounded good in his head until he was knocking on Jerome's front door and panic strangled him. He didn't even realize he was watching himself from the strange third-person vantage until the door opened. Jerome stood there, hair a bird's nest, shirt stained, eyes blurry with sleep. He squinted at Jake and then frowned. "I didn't order any food," Jerome muttered, raking his hand through his hair. "Who the hell are you?" Jake opened his mouth. Nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. "You're a terrible salesman," Jerome said flatly, "and you look like you're 12. What do you need?" The words tumbled out of Jake like a dam bursting. "You work at Ground Zero Coffee, you've got an anime poster over your bed, and you can make colors in the air." Jerome blinked, not scared, astonished. "Oh yeah? Do I have a teen stalker now?" Jake flailed his hands. "No, not like that. You're magic. I'm magic." Jerome's brows lifted, then he smirked. "You should have led with that. Come in." Jake stepped into the living room, already familiar with every corner, every poster, every dirty dish. "So you're psychic?" Jerome asked, shutting the door. Jake shook his head. "Not exactly. I don't read thoughts, at least. Not yet." "Not yet?" Jerome repeated, eyeing him as if he wasn't sure if it was a joke or not. "Not yet," Jake confirmed, with way too much confidence. Jerome dropped onto the couch, waving at a beanbag chair. Jake perched awkwardly on the edge, trying not to sink. "So you're an adept too?" Jerome asked. "Adept? Yeah, that's what my group calls it. Magic? We don't like using the word mage." Jake nearly toppled off the beanbag. "You've got a group?" Jerome grinned. "A couple of us found each other. You didn't know?" Jake shook his head. "I only found you and 2 others yesterday. You lived closest." Jerome leaned forward. "How'd you find us?" Jake hesitated. "Farseeing? My friend calls it scrying. I can watch people, I guess?" Jerome's expression tightened. "How much have you been watching?" Jake beamed. "A lot, constantly, since you laid on the couch and lit up the room with your Northern Lights effects." Jerome dragged a hand over his face. "You watched me all night?" "Yeah, you were the first." Jake caught himself. "Adept." Jerome groaned but laughed despite himself. "Kid, that's creepy as hell, but let's say I believe you." Jake sagged in relief. "I just watched the lights," he said defensively. Jerome raised a hand and the air above Jake shimmered. Blues and violets bled into one another in chaotic streaming waves. Jake swirled his fingers through them, sending ripples across the glow. "That's awesome," Jake whispered. Jerome shrugged. "Looks cool, but pretty useless, unless you're high." Jake grinned. "It's not fireballs, but still." Jerome smirked. "Not as awesome as spying on anyone, anytime." Before Jake could answer, his phone buzzed violently. He silenced it. "Tell me about the others," Jerome urged. "One guy can bend stone. He's a construction worker. Name's Adam, I think." Jerome laughed. "He's already in the club." Jake's phone rang again. He winced. "Persistent," Jerome noted. "Yeah, she doesn't call twice unless..." Jake froze as it rang a third time, his gut twisted. "I need to text her, sorry." He paced toward the kitchen, typing furiously. Jerome just leaned back, patient. "I need to head back to school," Jake muttered. "She's losing it." "You really are in high school?" Jerome chuckled. Jake gave a sheepish nod. "You want my number for the next meetup?" Jake's face lit up. "Yes, please." He fumbled through contacts and his phone rang again. He answered this time. His mother's voice hit him like a freight train, panicked, furious, demanding where he was. Jake shouted back promises. He was safe. He'd be at his second period class, ended in slammed words and a sigh as he hung up. "I've got to go," Jake muttered, already at the door. Jerome gave a wordless grunt, recognizing the look of a kid stuck between fear and family. Jake was locking his bike outside the school when his stomach dropped. He'd never gotten Jerome's number. He cursed and reached for his gift, pulling his sight towards Jerome's house, and froze. Ghent filled the doorway, his too wide grin stretching like a rip in the world. "Jacob," the detective thundered, "I don't think you're taking me very seriously." His hands closed around Jerome's throat. Darkness coiled, tearing muscle and bone like wet paper. In seconds, Jerome was gone, sucked into the tendrils of shadow that licked Ghent's skin. Jerome hadn't even had time to scream or realize what was happening. Jake could barely register how swiftly it had all happened. The monster licked his lips, smiling wider. "See you soon, Jake." He strolled back to his cruiser, casual as ever. Jake shook, bile in his throat, terror in his chest. For the first time since unlocking his gift, he wished he hadn't seen a thing. Chapter 26. Gone. Okay, just calm down, Adam." Liz rushed across the apartment to stand beside Hank. Hank heard the panic in her voice before she even put the call on speaker. Adam's frantic words spilled out in a single breath. "He's not here, Liz. We had plans. He didn't work today. He's not here. I checked every room. The door was unlocked. He never leaves the door unlocked. Not when he's high. He's paranoid as hell when he smokes. Okay, Adam, just wait for us. Hank and I are coming." Liz's voice matched his urgency, her thoughts tumbling faster than she could control. Hank shook his head firmly. "Adam, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Liz isn't coming. Just wait for me, all right?" "What?" Liz snapped, her eyes flashing. "I'm going with you." "You're not," Hank said, the weight of his voice leaving no room for argument. Liz blinked at him, stunned, lost. On the line, Adam exhaled, already in step with Hank's thinking. "All right, I'll wait here. Just get here fast. Or maybe I could meet you somewhere else." "No, stay put. We'll look around there first," Hank said. He snatched the keys off the table. "Liz is hanging up. I'll call you from my phone." Liz's throat closed, tears threatening as she ended the call. "You're not coming, Liz. I'm sorry. It's Ghent. We both know it is." Hank pulled open the front door. "So it's okay for you to go, but not for me?" Her voice cracked. She wanted to chase him, to prove she wasn't afraid, but her feet betrayed her, rooting her to the floor. "We need to know," Hank said simply. Then he was gone, the door slamming shut behind him. Liz stared at the paint like it had swallowed him whole. The tears spilled freely, rolling down her cheeks. Her hand drifted to the knob, but she couldn't twist it, couldn't make herself follow. Her chest heaved, breath ragged, until her knees buckled and she sank to the floor, phone clutched in one hand, the handle in the other. Minutes bled together. Her shirt collar was soaked before she realized she'd been sobbing so heavily, ugly and loud, unable to stop. She scrolled through the group chat, desperate for comfort. The last message blurred her vision with fresh tears. "Jerome, you're all idiots. I love you." The words gutted her. She curled tighter, lost in grief, until Hank's ringtone jolted her back. She sniffed hard and answered, "Hey babe, I'm with Adam." Hank's voice was calm and deliberate. "What happened?" Liz whispered, desperately. "No idea. Jerome's not here. No sign of him. His car's out front. The place is messy, but not ransacked." Hank's voice was steady, but underneath it was something heavier, confusion and dread. "It's Ghent, same as Sam," Adam's voice cut in, sharp with rage. "We don't know that," Hank snapped back. "You don't know that. I do." Adam's voice shook with fury. Liz flinched at the sound of their arguing, her breath catching. "This is so fucked," Adam muttered. Hank exhaled slowly, grounding himself. "Liz, I've got to go. I'll call you when I'm on my way home." The line went dead before she could answer. Liz stared at the silent phone, praying Adam was wrong, praying Hank was right. Her head spun, half-formed thoughts colliding. Nina, Morgan. They deserved to know, but what words could she even use? She dialed Morgan first, but the voicemail cut her off before she could find her voice. She hung up. Texted Nina, 1 ring, 2, then her cheerful voice. "Hey Liz, what's up?" "Hey, Nina," Liz said, forcing brightness she didn't feel. "Did you need something, Liz?" Liz hesitated. Did she? Could she tell her? "Just wanted to see if you wanted to come over for dinner tonight." "Oh, sure, that sounds great." 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock. Nina hung up, leaving Liz holding the phone in silence. She realized she was still on the floor, back pressed against the door. With an effort, she pulled herself up and shuffled to the couch. She texted Hank, "Nina's coming for dinner." Hank's reply came quickly, just a thumbs up. No words, no context. She stared at the single emoji for long minutes, trying to decide if it meant anything more than it did. In the end, she sighed, convincing herself that it meant exactly what it always meant, and nothing more. And still, she didn't know what to think or how to feel. Chapter 27, Plans. Vuet had poured every spare heartbeat of the last several years into Sanctuary. She had clawed a life from its chaos the same way a survivor claws warmth from a fire. She trained with masters, traded favors for knowledge, built a network of friends and acquaintances she could rely on. She hired tours to hone her gifts, mind healers to untangle her nightmares, physical trainers to strengthen her body and spirit. Specialists reshaped her limits. The City of Worlds had become not just her refuge, but her home, a home she had chosen. In her personal studio, the air smelled faintly of resin and old paper. She moved with quiet precision through a set of forms, claws flexing, muscles burning in rhythm. Wards. shimmered faintly at the edges of her senses, a small ritual of security she clung to, even knowing they were useless. Their light bent, space flexed. Ryland appeared in the room. Vuet didn't stop, though her tail twitched with irritation. She had paid an obscene amount to layered protections against dimensional travel, but Ryland broke them every time. The wards weren't really for him. They were for her own sense of safety, a fragile wall of habit between herself and the emptiness she'd once known. "Ryland?" she greeted without looking up, still flowing through her exercises. "This day for you, Vuet," he said plainly. "I found it." Her hands stilled mid-motion. The man standing there held a place inside her as complex as a knot, the architecture of her rescue and her ruin. His declaration felt like it might have been salvation or disaster. "I need your help," Ryland continued, his voice almost pleading. "You could hire any tour you want," Vuet replied coolly. She wouldn't dismiss him outright, but she would not be a tool either. "You can't buy trust," he said, standing where he'd appeared. Vuet began pacing, claws clicking against the polished floor. "Why would you trust me? You know my goal. And you know the consequences better than anyone else I could hire." His smile was sad, wary. "Should I refuse?" She faced him fully now, when she asked her question. "Then I'll find another," he answered without blinking. Vuet's chest rose and fell. The city outside her window hummed with life, a chorus of languages, towers, and impossible shapes, creatures whose colors she couldn't name. This was her sanctuary. She finally begun to belong somewhere, and yet she already knew her answer. "You know I'm coming with you," she said, exhaling sharply. "I wouldn't trust anyone else in my place." Ryland's smile deepened. "That's why I asked." Her eyes softened with sorrow. "How many worlds have the Shapers claimed, Ryland?" "Too many," he said quietly. "Far too many." "And when do we leave?" "Tomorrow or the day after," he said, bowing his head. "Use your voice," Vuet commanded. He inhaled, then spoke. "I want to use your world as the anchor." Vuet flinched. She had thought herself beyond caring, but the words landed like a blow. If he used her world, her people would be lost forever. No hope of restoration, even if he succeeded in his plans. She had accepted their loss, or told herself she had, but this still felt like a betrayal. "Why?" Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "I want to honor your people," Ryland said steadily, "and we need a world already purged to avoid more loss. I've never walked an empty world. My powers can't find them." Her heart beat hot and bitter in her chest. "I'll select another," he offered. "No," she said immediately. "I am the only survivor, the only one who can speak for the lost. Choose my world, but honor my people when you end the Shaper's march." Ryland crossed the space between them and wrapped his arms around her. "I will," he swore. "You'll be with me." Vuet closed her eyes and returned to the hug, the warmth of his arms a small anchor in a swirl of loss and duty. Sanctuary had become her refuge, but it had not been meant to last forever. The power inside her and the ghosts of her people were already calling her back to another life. Chapter 28. The Cold. Jake shuddered as goosebumps rippled across his skin. Ghent wasn't a corrupt detective anymore, not in Jake's mind. Not a man with a badge, a desk, and some shady connections. He was something out of a nightmare, a creature that wore human shape, smiled with human teeth, and walked into offices like a storybook villain playing at being ordinary. The realization had hit Jake like a truck. No law, no courtroom, no judges could stop something like Ghent. All the structures Jake once thought of as safeguards were paper shields against a storm. He wandered the halls mechanically, a boy on autopilot, while his mind watched a monster from far away. Ghent had returned to the office as if nothing at all had happened, whistling a happy tune, sliding mail into bins, logging into his computer. To everyone else, he was just another man at work. To Jake, he was a predator playing with its food. At his desk, Ghent bore a wide, toothy grin that made Jake's stomach twist. Jake went white as chalk, but kept watching. He couldn't look away. Ghent flipped through files, nodded at coworkers, answered emails, ordinary gestures, hiding the extraordinary horror. "Jacob, you look half dead. You're not supposed to come to school if you're sick." "Go see the nurse," his teacher's voice cut through the haze like a knife. Jake didn't answer. He grabbed his backpack by one strap, and dragged it across the floor as he left the classroom. His footsteps felt heavy as his heart. In the main office, he sat in one of the hard chairs, staring blankly until a girl behind the desk came around to tap him on the shoulder. She stayed well back afterwards, as if he carried the plague. Why are you here?" she asked, already retreating. "Nurse." His voice came out flat, a void of inflection that matched his hollow eyes. She scuttled away without another word. In his mind, Ghent was still at his desk. The detective's movements were exuberant, childish almost. Dick gagged, remembering Jerome's body being torn apart like a doll, muscles and blood devoured by black tendrils. Tears burned in his eyes as he slid down his cheeks as the school nurse crouched beside him, scribbling a note while she spoke softly. "You're obviously not well enough to be back at school. I'll call your mother to come pick you up." "No," Jake said quickly. "I have my bike. I'll ride." He didn't even notice the nurse's alarmed expression. "You just wait here while I call your parents, young man." He sat there trembling, stomach rolling. In his mind, Ghent turned his chair and looked directly into the invisible camera of Jake's farseeing. "Jake, I want to thank you," the detective rumbled. No matter how Jake shifted his perspective, Ghent's eyes followed him, twisting in his office chair, appearing almost silly. "I was having such a difficult time tracking down the attuned," he purred. "You found them so quickly for me, just when I was starting to starve." Jake sucked in a sobbing breath. The nurse's voice reached him faintly. "He looks half dead. Are you sure?" she asked whoever was on the other end of the phone call. "Okay, we're going to send him home." Jake blinked at her as she hung up the phone. "Your mother said you can take your bike, but you're to ride right home." She slid a slip of paper onto the counter and stepped back. Jake collected it and shuffled out. "Jacob," Gent's voice followed him as he walked. "How many more can you find for me? Are you going to make it difficult? If I took you now, maybe I could use your powers to find every last one and gorge myself on their spirits." Jake snapped his vision off. He couldn't stand the sight of the man, couldn't even bear the sound of his voice. He stumbled to the bike rack and landed heavily on his knees into the bushes, heaving until there was nothing left. His hands and knees dug into the dirt as dry heaves racked him and tears streaked his face. He felt helpless, scared, weak, worse than he'd ever felt before, worse than any cold. He could do nothing but follow the plan the nurse had made for him. He rode home like a ghost, shuffled inside, collapsed onto his bed. All he could bring himself to look at was the ceiling as he cried. Chapter 29. Blackout. Aaron was having a day. The kind of day that made him question whether he'd woken up in the wrong city, wrong timeline, or just the wrong damn life. His head was pounding before he opened his eyes, a hangover he didn't earn. He'd had drinks, sure, but not enough to deserve the punishment. His blood felt thick, pushing like sand through the veins in his mind. He told himself going to the office would help. Routine, normalcy, noise to drown out the hum that had been building inside of his head. Mistake number 2. Mistake number 1 had been waking up. The third mistake came when he clipped a concrete barrier leaving his apartment. The tire hissed, sagged, and deflated immediately. He didn't even bother trying to fix it. He just stared at it a moment, then grabbed his bike. He was already late. Might as well be very late. By the time he got to work, sweat clung to his shirt and his pulse was beating in sync with his headache. His boss didn't greet him, just pointed at a chair in a meeting room. Senior leadership was already mid-tirade, deadlines, delays, Aaron's name floating around like a curse. The hospital stay earned him exactly 0 empathy. Just new deadlines, and we'll need to make up the difference. He sat there, nodding, a ghost in his own funeral. Then came the overtime talk. An hour of management speak wrapped around one message: work harder, work longer, no excuses. By the time he reached his desk, the day had already beaten him. He opened his inbox, 1,100 unread emails. He started clearing them like weeds. Open, skim, delete, open, skim, delete. He could almost hear the minutes of the day dying. A few coworkers stopped by to check in on him, but they only wanted gossip about the stable. When he couldn't give them any details, they drifted off again. Even ghosts didn't linger long around the half-dead. Hours passed. The office emptied. His head still rang. When the server went down, he laughed, that bitter, broken kind of laugh that sounds too close to a sob. He fixed it anyway, because that's what monkeys do. Monkeys work. It was nearly 5 when the lights began to hum with the faint, sick flicker fluorescent bulbs get when they're about to die. His monitor joined in, colors bleeding and twitching. Aaron leaned back and rubbed the bridge of his nose, promising himself this was the last late night, the last coffee, the last everything. He made it until after sunset. The room was dim, his head a drumbeat of regret and caffeine. When his boss pinged him, "Can you move the project up to Wednesday?" Aaron just stared at the screen. His heart sank, but his hands went back to the keyboard because saying no wasn't an option, not today. He went for more coffee. 6 cups, 7, the number didn't matter anymore. His body was a machine, running on bitterness and caffeine. When he returned, the monitor was flicking again, harder now, pulsing like it shared his frustrations. His code crashed 3 times in a row. He cursed, rebooted, recursed again. Each failure hit him like a physical blow. He closed his eyes just for a second and wished he could sleep forever. When he opened them, the entire building was dark. No hum, no light, just the echo of his own breathing. He pulled out his phone. Dead. Not low, dead. Had he charged it that morning? Or even if he thought he had, morning Aaron hadn't been reliable today. Every single task he'd accomplished had been through a foggy haze of automation that didn't need to be recorded in memory. He sighed and groped his way through the dark, hand brushing along cubicle walls and cold doorknobs until he found the back exit. The city outside was a shadow, streetlights gone, buildings dark, just the dull orange haze of distant clouds. He murmured, "Great, whole grid's gone down to nobody. No lights for the bike either." But he didn't care. He just wanted to be home. The ride felt endless, air thick and cold, the silence absolute except for the soft whir of his tires on asphalt. He didn't even see the blackout stretching for miles. He didn't care what caused it. His mind was too far gone, the day too long. He reached his apartment, stumbled inside, and fell onto his bed fully clothed. The world stayed dark. He didn't dream. He just slept. Finally, mercifully. Chapter 30. Hunted. Morgan, Nina, and Liz sat together in the kind of silence that only exists when everyone's pretending something isn't wrong. Liz was trying desperately to talk about anything except the gaping void hovering between them. "So, how's selling houses?" she asked finally, and even she hated herself for it. "Liz," Nina said flatly, "you're being extra weird tonight. What's going on?" "Yeah," Morgan added, exchanging a knowing glance with Nina. "You don't care about houses unless we're hiding out in one." Liz felt the sweat pricking at her neck. "Nothing," she said too fast, too sharp. The other two shared a silent conversation made entirely of raised eyebrows and suspicion. Then, without a word, they began circling, slow, deliberate, predator-like. "I just wanted to have a fun night," Liz tried weakly, her voice climbing at the end, betraying her. "Liz," Nina said again, this time harder. Morgan took another step forward, her gaze narrowing to a knife's edge. "Jerome's missing." The words broke out of Liz before she could stop them. The room went dead quiet. "What do you mean, missing?" Morgan asked first. "He was chatting with us yesterday." Nina's expression softened slightly, but she stayed silent, waiting. "Hank and Adam went to his place. He never showed up. His door was unlocked," Liz explained, words tumbling over each other. "He never leaves it unlocked." "Liz?" Nina said gently, the warmth returning to her tone. "You should have told us right away." Morgan's anger didn't soften. "Liz, you know none of us just go missing. If Jerome's gone, it's because the detective found him." Her voice rose with every word. "You should have told us." "We don't know that," Liz said, the protest weak even in her own ears. Nina looked torn, her eyes darting between them. "Anything could have happened," Liz said, again, voice smaller than ever. "But anything didn't happen," Morgan snapped. "Dickhead found Jerome, and now he's gone. And he's not done. You think we're safe? This is why we stopped showing off. This is why we stopped recruiting. Do you not remember what happened to Sam?" "I remember," Liz yelled, taking a step back, trembling. "But that's all it is to you, a memory." Morgan's words hit like thrown stones. "Another thing that happened." Morgan, that's not fair, Liz shouted back, her throat raw. The front door opened. Hank stepped in fast, Adam right behind him. Nina instinctively retreating to the kitchen, out of the blast radius. Another one of our friends is dead, Liz. Morgan's voice broke into a scream. You can live in denial all you want, but it won't help anyone else. Morgan, Hank barked, his voice cracked through the tension like thunder. How the hell does yelling at Liz keep any of us safe? Morgan glared at him, and then Liz, jaw set. Nina, we're leaving. Nina hesitated, eyes pleading for calm. I'm so sorry, Liz. Sorry, Hank. She followed Morgan out, shoulders slumped. The door slammed. Silence filled the apartment again, heavy, suffocating. Hank turned back. You okay, babe? I'm fine, Liz lied automatically, her voice already trembling. She's not wrong, Hank. Her sentence dissolved into a sob. It's all right, he said softly, wrapping his arms around her. None of us know what to do, not really. Adam cracked open the fridge and grabbed a beer. I was just as mad this morning, he admitted. Spent the day trying to figure it out with Hank. Didn't help much, but yelling sure as hell won't fix it either. Liz wiped her eyes, breathing unevenly. It felt like I kept screwing things up. That's called living, Hank murmured, still rocking her gently. Adam took another long sip. Please tell me there's food. We've been running on fumes since sunrise. Liz forced a laugh and moved away from Hank to peek into the oven. Family-sized lasagna and salad. I hope it'll be enough for 3, she joked. Adam grinned. That smells incredible. You might actually save my life tonight. Then without warning, the lights died. The oven's hum vanished. Every sound seemed to fall away. The room was swallowed by darkness. I guess we're having a partially warm lasagna and salad, Liz said, voice flat, but with a tiny tremor of humor beneath it. Adam laughed first. Hank followed. A heartbeat later, Liz joined them. 3 exhausted souls, laughing in the dark because it was the only thing left to do.